We got a jam-packed show for you today on the AZ Wildcats podcast. Tommy Lloyd offers another in-state recruit, Carter Bryant, to the NBA draft green room. And we got Justin Spears on the show. All and more in 30 seconds. Do not go anywhere. Welcome on in, guys, to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Damon Fairall, coming to you live from beautiful, lovely downtown Phoenix at PHNX HQ2. And I am joined today by my guy, Justin Spears, who joins us. Another Kevin-less Damon and Justin episode here. There was a lot of rumors swirling, I think, early on about that being the opposite. And, I really feel like we're making some progress here in terms of making Kevin look like the odd man out recently. Justin?
Kevin, that freaking slacker. Come on, man.
Classic
Kevin, what are you
Kevin.
doing, bro? What are you doing, man? But anyways, dude, I'm super excited to be on with you guys. And I told you, Arizona baseball, even though they got smacked by 16 runs, and we recorded the show last week, and I'm like, I ain't giving up on these Wildcats just yet. Hold on. I know we're going to talk about it later on in the podcast, but yeah, it's a special time to be following Arizona athletics and especially this Arizona baseball team. Here we go.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great place to start. I mean, I remember I said on that show that you were on with us on Friday where, as much as it hurts to lose that game 18-2, at the end of the day, with Knapp pitching for North Carolina, maybe the best starting pitcher in the entire country, like it could have been the blueprint for Arizona to come out on top in that super regional. Was like, or I guess the most likely blueprint was, losing North Carolina in game one and beating them in the next two games. And Arizona came out on top, winning a couple close games there. But, we do have this Coastal Carolina matchup now that I'm sure a lot of Arizona fans are, wanting some revenge, but also maybe a little bit emotionally scarred for life here. And I did put together a Coastal Carolina graphic for the people at home. They are 53-11 on the season. They went 30-4 in their conference. They have the fourth highest RPI in the country. This is all according to D1 Baseball. One thing that was interesting to me, Justin, and as far as to my understanding, in non-conference, they had the number one RPI in the country because they know that they play in a smaller conference in the Sun Belt. They wanted to get some bigger competition. So they played some legitimate competition, and they came up on top with extremely difficult non-conference schedule. They're 79th in runs out of a total of 299 teams. They are second in team ERA in the entire country, one spot ahead of North Carolina, who Arizona just took down, who, of course, had elite starting pitching. North Carolina was at third in the country, and then that strength of schedule is at 64th, despite playing in a mid-major conference. The Chanticleers, they really did play a pretty tough schedule this season because they made it hard on themselves in the non-conference. And I think that it goes to show that they were a team that had big-time aspirations going into this season. And I think they met those expectations, and they find themselves in Omaha. Not going to be an easy out by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely a game that is winnable by Arizona standards. But, that's a good team over there and very similar kind of to North Carolina in a lot of ways.
They are very similar to North Carolina. And, Coastal Carolina, to cite my colleague Michael Lev, who's a senior writer and columnist, a guy who's been there every step of the way with Arizona baseball, covering them this season, he made a really interesting comparison to them. And it's like Coastal Carolina is almost like Gonzaga basketball, where they're kind of in their own part of the country, just doing their own thing. Really good program. They've always been really good. And they're so dominant, too, in their conference. But in order to gain the respect of people nationally, they had to really put together a tough non-conference schedule, which they did. And they're very similar to North Carolina in the sense that they have great pitching. North Carolina had the third lowest ERA going into that super regional. Well, guess what? Coastal Carolina, number 2 when it comes to ERA in college baseball. And then you pointed out their incredible record. Well, not only do they win 30 games in conference play, but they go into this game on Friday against Arizona with a 23 game winning streak. That is not a
Wow.
typo. They have won 23 consecutive games going into this matchup. So for some of the baseball casuals, you probably look at, oh, Coastal Carolina, Arizona's got that, no problem. Be very careful. this Coastal Carolina team is pretty damn good. They have great pitching, and they've been dominant every step of the way. And honestly, Arizona, I know if the WWE script writers, right, they want to make sure, we got Arizona versus Coastal Carolina and maybe even Arizona versus LSU somewhere down the road. But this was a bad draw for Arizona baseball. And I think U of A baseball fans are going to find out early on Friday at 11 a.m. why this Coastal Carolina team is pretty damn good. And hey, some people like Michael, who's in the comment section, he said, oh, I said that in 2016, with this Coastal Carolina team. Oh,
Same.
Arizona, they got this. They got this, no problem. And then Coastal Carolina, gutted away 2 wins there to win the college World Series. But Arizona baseball, they are not overlooking any opponent. They had a tough schedule all year long as well. Played some really tough teams in the Big 12. I mean, even in the postseason, Big 12 baseball tournament, they had some tough challenges. And then I know that they didn't play Oregon up in Eugene for the NCAA regional, but Cal
Mm-hmm.
Poly and Utah Valley are pretty damn good teams. And then North Carolina is as good as it gets in college baseball. And for Arizona to overcome getting smoked by 16 runs and then really gutting out some impressive wins, and how they did it too. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, Damon. When I saw game 3, the game that got Arizona into the College World Series, when Mason White had that error, and I was like, oh man, like this is going to be like Arizona, typical Arizona. They got so close, but something happens to where they can't achieve the dream.
Yeah.
And that error by Mason White, he really felt that, and you could definitely tell it bothered him. But to quote Ted Lasso, you got to have the memory of a goldfish. He did not let that overcome, I guess, that game and take over his emotions. He put it away, and he became the big hero in the end for Arizona baseball. And now we're talking about Mason White becoming he's a third generation Wildcat, but he is the first one to take Arizona to the College World Series. Chip Hale is going back to the College World Series for the first time since 1986 when he led Arizona as a player. The storylines are everywhere, but I think the big storyline with this team is that you never count out these guys. Even when they drop a game, they always figure out ways to bounce back. The camaraderie on this team is incredible. I mean, not only just the playoff bananas, but you also have this cool little tradition that they established with a toy, mostly a Hot Wheels / toy car,
Yeah.
where the MVP of the game gets a little toy, and the players love that. And Chip is a very strict coach. He develops talent, but he also allows the guys to be themselves and let their hair down, because after all, this is a child's game. It's baseball, man. Like, you're supposed to be out here having fun. And right now, Arizona baseball, they're looking like they're having some fun right now. So it's a good time.
Yeah, it absolutely is a good time, and it's been an unbelievable run no matter what, I think. But obviously, when you get to the College World Series, you want to continue to grow and get past that and even do more, right? Because you didn't get all the way there just to get that kind of, I don't want to call it a participation trophy. Making the College World Series is a huge accomplishment, but you want to make it further. You want to win the whole thing. And yeah, I mean, it starts with that Coastal Carolina game. Michael says in here he wants to know what a Chanticleer is. Do you know, Justin? Do you know what a Chanticleer is?
I believe it's a bird. Well, their logo is a teal bird. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and guess a Chanticleer, however you pronounce it. Yeah, I think it's a bird of some sort, or maybe a very high end alcoholic beverage.
It is a rooster, particularly one of pride and fierce temperament. And that just begs the question for me. I mean, obviously, they're kind of in the Myrtle Beach range of South Carolina. They're in the state of South Carolina. You have the Gamecocks already in the state. Could we not think of anything else other than a fighting chicken, fighting rooster? That's all we
I
got in
know.
South Carolina. That's all
I
we
know.
got.
I know. It's so weird. I didn't even think about that. Like, yeah. Well, we got the Clemson Tigers. Hey,
Yeah,
they're in South
true.
Carolina, but yeah,
Real original, the Tigers. No
yeah,
one's
the
thought of
Tigers.
that one before.
Hey, no one's got a shot to clear, so they're pretty original.
True, that is
Okay.
original, but and Gamecocks is too. But it's just funny to me that you have like two of like the probably 3 or 4 bigger universities in the entire state, and they're essentially the exact same mascot, just in different names. But yeah, I thought that Gonzaga comparison that you gave us from your colleague Michael Lev was very interesting. Kind of tucked away in that corner of the country, probably nothing that they could ever do to be a true quote unquote blue blood, but maybe like being the blue blood of the group 5 schools, of the mid-major schools, and being like the premier, because we've seen that before with like a Cal State Fullerton, right? Where they were, they're a smaller school. They were winning national championships at a
Yep.
school like that. So I think you can make it work. Oregon State, for example, like they're independent now and they're, one of the top baseball programs in the country. I have no thoughts that they're going to fall off or anything. But going into this game, Arizona is plus 180 on the money line, plus 1.5 run line, and Coastal Carolina is minus 230. So pretty hefty favorites for a college baseball game, especially when you get to the final 8 teams. But Arizona was the underdog in all the North Carolina games too, and they found a way to come out on top.
I do want to go back to Oregon State here for a second.
Yeah.
Um, I think honestly, the biggest winner of this whole thing has to be the Pac-12
Mm-hmm.
because the Pac-12 splintered, and you have teams going to the Big Ten, you have teams going into the Big 12. Obviously, Oregon State still in the Pac. It allowed teams on the West Coast to go to other places and kind of move around the country, where like if you were a Pac-12 opponent, right, you're not going to see Arizona versus Oregon State. You're not going to see Arizona versus UCLA or whatever, Arizona versus Oregon, right, in the regional. But because the quote unquote Pac-12 was kind of spread around the country, we were able to see multiple teams from the old
Yeah.
Pac-12 get into the College World Series. And as a matter of fact, there are more teams from the Conference of Champions than the almighty SEC, right? You got Arizona, UCLA, Oregon State. And then what does the SEC have? They have Arkansas and LSU. So I think the biggest winner of this whole thing has to be the old Pac-12. And I'm really curious to see how Oregon State's going to do because, like you said, Damon, they've been up in Corvallis kind of doing their own thing, and they've turned into a baseball power. They produce many Major League Baseball players. They've consistently had deep runs in the postseason. So no matter what happens this weekend, I think we should all be on the Conference of Champions and be rooting for those teams this weekend in Omaha.
Yeah, I'm certainly with it. Although it's always hard to root for UCLA, I feel like, but I can definitely get behind an Oregon State, and I do love to see the Pac-12 just kind of prove people wrong. Just considering, I mean, I know you kind of lost the war already, but we'll never stop fighting. We'll never log off. That's one thing that's one of my big mottos in life. But Justin, I did want to ask you about um, just the Chip Hale contract situation. So he after this season he'll be in the final year of his contract. It's pretty widely known that it's difficult for a coach to recruit when they're only on an expiring deal and they don't have much of that long-term security. He clearly has shown that he belongs as a high-level college baseball coach. He's won back-to-back conference championships now in the tournament in the Big 12 and Pac-12. He's made it to a College World Series now and got past that like vaunted regional, even the vaunted super regional. Like he got all of that in one season, right? But he finds himself in a kind of a strenuous contract situation. I looked it up, and this was via Front Office Sports, updated as of late March. He is the 23rd highest paid head coach in college baseball at $520,000 a year. That puts him behind the likes of Oregon State and Oregon coaches in the Pac-12, puts him behind Oklahoma State and Texas Tech's coach in the Big 12, And of course, I just wanted to throw this in there. Jay Johnson sitting at fifth at $1.79 million, over three times as much as what Chip Hale is making at Arizona. But if Chip Hale's being the 23rd highest paid head coach in college baseball, I'm assuming he would need a raise because he's been successful and he's shown that success so far. But that is an extremely reasonable rate for a coach that is competing for conference championships year in and year out in one of the bigger sports in college athletics. So, just kind of, what are your thoughts on the Chip Hale contract situation, and do you think that Arizona and Chip Hale will be able to figure some common ground here?
Well, when I hear Jay Johnson's figures, I'm like, yeah, no wonder why he left Arizona. Like
Yeah,
people can hate on Jay Johnson all you want,
true.
but we're talking about what, double your salary
Triple.
at the triple? Yeah. People who have or are given Jay Johnson any type of guff, you've never been in a situation where your salary has been tripled and you're facing those kind of options. But yeah, I mean, I think that Chip Hale, as the 23rd highest paid coach in college baseball, I think it's not really surprising, but I think that number should definitely increase because, you think about it, when Chip Hale first got to the U of A, he was a first time college baseball coach. He
Hmm.
had spent time in Major League Baseball, was going down that path. He hadn't really proven himself as a college baseball
Yeah.
coach. And then you add in the NIL factor. Can Chip Hale recruit? Can he develop talent? So there were a lot of questions regarding Chip Hale. And I think at this point, Chip has proven that he is the best leader for Arizona baseball at this point. Not just because Arizona is going to Omaha and they're going to the College World Series, but look at how he has developed talent, right? Look at Summerhill. Look at Easton Brayfogle. The biggest example of a guy who developed nicely is Mason White.
Yeah.
And when Chip was first hired at Arizona, we actually had South Point's baseball coach on the radio show this week.
My
And
baseball
shout out to
coach.
oh yeah, Coach
Yeah.
Preble.
Yep.
Yeah, he's the best, man. I love Coach Preble, absolute stud. And we asked him about the history of Mason White and how he got to Arizona. I knew that Chip Hale went to go to South Point and watched Mason White practice and work out, and then offered him right on the spot. But I didn't know it was less than a week of Chip being on the job. Like, Chip was only there for a couple of
Wow.
days, and he was like, "Okay, I got to hit up the best in-state talent. I got to look in our backyard." And he reached out to South Point, and I think his son, Chip's son, played baseball at South Point, so
Yeah,
he's very
Jack.
familiar with. Yeah, Jack. So he was very familiar with the baseball program, and reached out to Coach Preble and said, "Hey, can I go? I heard you have this kid named Mason White. Can I come watch him work out?" And he did. Mason White didn't have any offers from other big time programs, and Chip offered him right on the spot. He takes this raw developing talent from South Point Catholic, and now lo and behold, a few years later, this guy is number two, not far behind from Shelley Duncan as Arizona's all-time careers home runs leader, and has turned into one of the best second basemen that Arizona baseball has ever seen. That's why Chip is worth every penny that he's getting. He's taking kids from right in his backyard and he's turning them into essentially all conference, all American type of players. And then look at the turnover from Arizona baseball. Have we seen Arizona baseball deal with heavy turnover year after year? Is there like, oh my gosh, look at all these players that are entering the portal.
Yeah.
What's going on with Arizona baseball right now? We haven't seen anything like that. So I think when you look at Chip's contract now, when he signed it at the time, it was a fair contract because he still had a lot to prove. Now I feel like he has done all of that. And I mean, shoot, he can really put the punctuation on this by winning the whole damn thing and winning a national championship. So, yeah, every coach who's really good never goes into the final year of their contract without an extension. And I think when the dust settles after Omaha and the College World Series, maybe even this week, I don't know, we'll be seeing Chip Hale getting a nice contract extension, staying here at Arizona. If he doesn't, that's absolutely criminal.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Arizona fans would have every right to be up in arms if he doesn't get that extension, because what else could you want? And this is a sport that Arizona baseball has a rich history, and you know, you expect to be good. This isn't a place where, you know, it's oh, it's nice that Chip Hale's good. You know, he might leave us or whatever. Like, this is the destination, and that's why it hurts so bad seeing a coach like Jay Johnson leave out the door, right? Because you don't really experience that at Arizona baseball very often when you see success. Looking at this list, I mean, like, you have a East Carolina coach one spot directly ahead of Chip Hill. I think that, you know, like, that will need to change. But most of these teams are SEC and ACC schools that are above what Chip Hale is making. That's clearly where the money is involved in the coaching ranks. Even the lower scale SEC coaches are making more money than Chip Hale is. So I would assume that he'll probably have to get in that kind of you know, high six figures, low seven figures range to get him to re-sign. But I think it's fairly earned based off of you know, essentially every metric that you could go off of. And you're right, like, there's so much talent in Southern Arizona when it comes to baseball in particular. It's, you know, Arizona is, I think, you know, while I think hoops is like the Suns and the Arizona Wildcats basketball are clearly the two teams that people rally around the most. I think in terms of, you know, what this state is playing the most, I think baseball is what it is, right? You have spring training. MLB has all types of offices and headquarters out here. Like, this is a baseball state, and there's tons of talent. You look at Nogales, South Point, CDO, Ironwood, like where Andrew Kane is from. There's tons of guys all across, you know, Southern Arizona high schools that could play for Arizona baseball and help this program. And Chip Hale has done a great job of seeing that, and it, I think it just makes that connection that much deeper, right? Because it means more with Mason White. You see it when he's breaking down right after Arizona beats North Carolina to win the Chapel Hill Super Regional. He's, you know, he's bent over crying because it means everything to his family. And you have a kid in Mason White who won South Point its first baseball you know, state championship, and now could he, you know, be the guy who wins Chip Hale his first national championship at Arizona. It's just a really cool story. Transitioning kind of off of that, Justin, there's a similar situation going on with softball. I know they've brought in some pretty decent recruits recently, and you had a great article on Tucson.com for the Arizona Daily Star, kind of highlighting some of these recruits. You had Serenity Trice, who's all Big 12 selection last year for Iowa State, really good player. Addison Duke, who was a top 20 recruit in college softball last year when she went to Ole Miss, didn't play a whole lot, but clearly a very talented Arizona native as well. And then Telly Jennings. Am I saying that correctly?
I
Um,
think you're saying it correctly. I just look at that name and I'm like, oh, Tella. It's like
yeah,
telephone.
it could be either one, but apologies if I got that incorrectly. More of a utility role, defensive outfielder type. But so you're seeing some transfers come in. You obviously saw a lot of transfers leave, but Caitlin Lowe in a similar situation where only 1 year remaining on that contract. Slightly different outcomes between Chip Hale and Caitlin Lowe this year. I know people were disappointed Arizona didn't make it out of their regional. Do you have any insight regarding the Caitlin Lowe situation on campus?
And like you said, it's different than Chip Hale's situation because she didn't have the postseason success, especially in the year where Arizona appeared to have all the tools to get to Oklahoma City and contend for a College World Series. I mean, look at everybody in the outfield. Look at their pitching staff. Arizona had all the pieces, and they stumbled against a really good Ole Miss team early on, but they should have won that regional. I don't really know what's the latest regarding Caitlin Lowe, but maybe this deal will get done here very soon. I'm not. This is not sourced. This is just kind of my gut feeling telling me,
Hmm.
what's going on right now. Right now, the biggest focus is Arizona baseball and
Yeah.
Omaha and the College World Series, and then I think when all of that is done, then we can start getting into contracts and everything like that. But it's hard for Arizona softball to get their best recruits because their parents, their agents that are representing these players now, they all have the question like, what's the deal with Caitlin Lowe? I don't want my daughter or client going to play for this team if you're not going to renew her contract or if you're going to
Yeah.
find a new coach. I don't know where Desiree Reed-Francois is at right now regarding Caitlin Lowe, but here's my thing: like, who are you going to get that's better? I don't know. I don't know who's a better option than Caitlin Lowe right now. So yeah, we'll see. But I do like the additions that they got. I love the new pitcher that they added from Iowa, Jalen Adams.
Yeah.
She was a second team All Big Ten selection. Was one of the top strikeout throwers. Had the most, I think, the second or third most innings pitched by a Big Ten pitcher last year. And when Arizona loses not only the Big 12 Player of the Year in Devin Netz, you lose Miranda Stoddard, you lose so many other pitchers, right? They're losing essentially their entire pitching personnel. So getting a Jalen Adams is big time. That's probably going to be a player that's in contention to be your ace pitcher next year for Arizona. And then Serenity Trice as well. Every time I hear Trice, her last name, I think of Obi Trice, no games. Was it real names, no gimmicks? So I think it's the intro of the Eminem song. Guess who's back? That song. But
Oh,
anyways,
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, Obi Trice, real names, no gimmicks. Serenity Trice, I mean, she's a real player.
yeah,
She's awesome. She's not a power hitter. Like when you look at her home run stats, I think she only hit a couple of home runs this last year, but she's a freshman. And she was very productive as a true freshman. She was named a unanimous selection to the All Big 12 freshman team. So she's a damn good player, and she's got a few years left of eligibility. So she's going to come here, continue to develop, and be a great player. And then she's probably going to be your second baseman. And you still have Jenna Sniffen at third base. You also have Taylor Beal, who's one of the top shortstops in all of college softball. And then Sydney Stewart at catcher as well. Like they have a really good nucleus of players. Are they going to be as good as they were this past year? Probably not. In Arizona, they still have lots of work to do in the transfer portal. But yeah, they're slowly but surely adding some players.
yeah. No, I hear you on the whole like, what are you gonna do other than extend Caitlin Lowe's situation? Like, it's not like Caitlin Lowe has been a bad coach. She's certainly done a solid job, but it just hasn't been picking that baton from Mike Candrea and keeping it at this program at that elite level status, right? That we've come to expect
Sure.
with Arizona softball.
But in fairness to Caitlin Lowe, she's going through NIL. Now you
Yeah,
have
for
revenue
sure.
share and all that. That's something that Mike Candrea, and I'm sure he'll be the first one to tell you, he fortunately didn't have to deal with that. And now, we're starting to figure out, okay, who values softball? In college sports, it's always the haves and the have-nots.
Yep.
We already know about the haves and the have-nots in college football. College softball, we would like to think that Arizona is in that haves category. But what does their booster situation look like? What is their funding? What percentage of the pie of revenue share are they going to get when that comes into effect in 2025 or next month? Desiree Reed Francois, she told my colleague Michael Lev that softball is going to get a percentage of the revenue share. How much it is, I don't know, but I'm sure financially, I mean, that's why Dakota Kennedy and Kaya Altmaier decided to leave, because now you have these programs that are throwing money left and right at the best players in college softball. And for those two players, they're going into their last year of eligibility. Why not go and make a couple extra $1,000 or make some money that could really set you up for your adult life? So there's a number of things that are going into the softball world, Arizona softball. How it's all going to unfold in the next couple months should be really interesting. But the pieces that they've added so far, I really like it so far.
Yeah, and it's encouraging to see some talent be brought in after losing big time players like Kennedy and Altmaier. But you actually beat me to it. I was just about to say that it's clear as day that the NIL and financial resources around this program are not up to snuff when it comes to maybe our own fan interpretation of where Arizona softball should be on a annual basis, right? And that's not necessarily on anybody. I think that that's the nature of college athletics these days, and it sucks to see because you go from having a top two program really in college softball between Arizona and UCLA to Oklahoma bursting on the scene and spending all their football money on the sport, and it kind of snowballing into the entire SEC doing that. So it sucks as an Arizona fan, to be quite honest, but I think Caitlin Lowe deserves, I think, a little bit more time, and it's obviously you need to win your regionals when you host them in particular, but yeah, she deserves the chance to bring in some of these players here and kind of capitalize and grow based off of her own program rather than just taking that baton from the greatest college softball coach and the greatest softball coach in the history of the sport, right? But
Yes, sir.
Justin, we're gonna get your quarter century all Arizona football team, an article that you wrote for subscribers only on Tucson.com. Make sure you guys go help out our guy and support his work over there. And we're gonna get Justin's thoughts on that right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Circle K. Circle K is, if you live in the great state of Arizona, you see Circle K all over the place. And there's a good reason for that. It's because it is America's thirst stop. It is definitely Arizona's thirst stop. And I always say it, you can grab a rock, throw it in any direction, you'll hit a Circle K. That's how close they are. If you're not a member of the inner circle yet, what are you doing? I'm a premium member. I let it slip a little bit early there, but that means I get 5 cents off per gallon every time I fill up at the tank. And let me tell you guys, that adds up. You can get that premium status after a little bit of work, though. You'll get 3 cents off per gallon until you reach that 5 cent threshold. But before any of that, you're going to save 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. And actually, you know what? I think they just changed this because I was at the Circle K the other day, and I was like, you know what? I've been reading 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. They had a sign that said 50 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. That's double the savings if you need a little quick maths there. They also got their meal deals. They got all sorts of energy drink deals. It doesn't matter. The Inner Circle is the best place to save money. So join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. And it is so fast to sign up. If you aren't doing it, you are leaving money on the table, folks. Another way that you can, make sure you're not leaving money on the table is with our friends over at Monarch Money. Monarch Money, Kevin talks about it all the time. It is a great, money-based subscription service that you pay, and they tell you exactly what you're wasting your money on that week, so that you don't have these subscriptions that you're not using at all. That's taking a good 10, 15, $20 chunk out of your pocket week in and week out, and they're going to weed that out for you. They're going to find it, and they're going to make sure that you're not overspending, wasting that money, that you're being responsible. And I'll tell you what, I could use a little bit of that. I am a fiend when it comes to buying T-shirts in particular, hats a little bit too, but I could definitely use a little bit of Monarch Money to help me save some money on the margins and give me the opportunity to spend this money on these clothes that I can't help myself with because I'll be canceling some subscriptions that definitely could save me a few bucks here and there. So get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code PHNX at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with promo code PHNX. Well, Justin, I'll kind of let you, give you the reins here and let you kind of preview this. You put together a quarter century football team. And I'll be honest, I do subscribe to the Arizona Daily Star at Tucson.com. I do read all of your articles and try to read all of your articles before, especially before I have you on the show. But I did not read this one today because I wanted to go in blind and see if in my head, if you said anything that maybe jumped out at me or maybe that I just naturally disagreed with off the jump. So
Okay.
without further ado, I'll let you kind of proceed.
Yeah, so now we're approaching the summer months at the Star, and now we're getting really creative with our content in the dog days of summer. And we are coming up with a series where we are rolling out all quarter century teams. So I have the U of A football team. I'm going to be doing an all quarter century high school football team in Southern Arizona.
Wow.
Michael Lev is going to be doing an all quarter century Arizona baseball team. And I told him, like, Mesa White better be on that list. He better be on that team because he's a damn good second baseman. And yeah, Bruce Pascoe, Michael Lev, Elvia Verdugo. We have so many all quarter century teams that are going to be rolling out this summer. And the first one came out, which is the all quarter century U of A football team. So this is just from 2000 to 2025. I've already gotten a few emails from people that are like, what about Teddy Bruschi? What about, I'm like, guys, 2000 to 2025. Those guys are college football Hall of Famers. Great guys.
This guy didn't watch Ricky Hundley play football.
Yeah,
like
exactly. I'm
something like
like, I
that.
got people calling me an idiot because they're like, you don't have Rob Waldrop on your defensive line. What a
What the hell are
freaking
you
idiot.
thinking?
I'm like, well, Rob Waldrop played in the 90s. That's not quarter century of the 21st century. But anyways, so these are just players from 2000 to 2025 in multiple eras. And I also included a coach too. So offense, defense, special teams, one utility player. Here's the list that I have. At quarterback, I'm going with the Super Bowl MVP, Nick Foles. Now, we all know leading the Eagles to the Super Bowl was a big part of his popularity. But, man, he was a great quarterback at the U of A, is the school's career passing yards leader, single season passing yards leader, is tied with Willie Tuitama for the most career passing touchdowns with 67. Didn't have the postseason success. They kind of got smacked around in the Holiday Bowl and Alamo Bowl against Nebraska and Oklahoma State. But I think when it's all said and done, Nick Foles, greatest quarterback of all time at the U of A, and certainly the greatest quarterback of the 21st century. And then at running back, I got Kadeem Carey, two-time All-American, owns Arizona records for career rushing yards, single season rushing yards, and single game rushing yards at 366, which is also a Pac-10
Was that the
record.
Colorado game?
The Colorado game, yep, in
Yeah.
2012. In 2013, Kadeem eclipsed 40 career rushing touchdowns, which hadn't been done since Art Lupino in 1956. So, yeah, Arizona's had some great running backs, but Kadeem Carey in the last 25 years has stood above the rest.
Yes.
Wide receiver is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
You can go a number of ways. I did not put Jerron Kreiner on this list. And I know some
Wow.
people are probably like, what? How can you not have Jerron Kreiner? Here are the guys that I have over Jerron.
You
I
got
got
3 spots?
Yeah, 3 wide receivers.
Gotcha.
So I have Tetairoa McMillan, who is, in my opinion, the greatest receiver in Arizona football history. He's got the stats to back it up. He came in here as the highest rated recruit in U of A football history and left as maybe the best offensive player. He smashed all of his expectations and became the highest selected offensive Wildcat in NFL draft history. He's going to have a great NFL career. But T-Mac at Arizona was a part of that turnaround. I mean, he came to Arizona after the U of A went 1-11, and then he helped Arizona turn into a nationally relevant program, and he's always going to be a legend. So I got T-Mac on that list. I got Mike Thomas as well, Money Mike, who set the Pac-10 record for career receptions, which he set in Arizona's win over BYU in that 08 Vegas Bowl. And, I mean, Mike Thomas in that Sonny Dykes system, that was just special to watch. And he was also a great punt returner, too. So I put Mike Thomas on that list. And then my last wide receiver, I got Bobby Wade. 4-year career at Arizona. I mean, he was the guy that T-Mac was chasing when T-Mac first got to Arizona. And then Bobby Wade ended up becoming a mentor of T-Mac in his last season. So you got to put Bobby Wade on that list. Bobby Wade, Mike Thomas, Jerron Kreiner. Those are my wide receivers for the all-quarter century team. At tight end, I'm going with Rob Gronkowski. Kind of a no-brainer here. First team All-Pac-10 choice.
What the hell are you thinking, Justin?
The close second was Tanner McLaughlin. And then outside of that, tight ends have been kind of irrelevant at the U of A. So I got Gronk as my tight end. On the O-line, I have Eben Britton at tackle, who was an All-Pac-10 choice in 2008 and helped Arizona get to that Las Vegas Bowl. Ended up having a pretty solid NFL career. At guard, I'm going to go with Jacob Alsadek. Alsadek was a Rich Rodriguez lineman who started 46 games during his Arizona career. He only missed 4 games during his time at the U of A. At right guard, he was a freshman All-American by USA Today. And Arizona under Rich Rodriguez consistently had some of the best rushing offenses in the Pac-12, and he had a big part of that. At center, I'm going with Colin Baxter. Colin Baxter was the center counterpart to Nick Foles. He had 49 consecutive starts at left guard and center. Before there was a Josh Baker, there was a Colin Baxter, who was a second-team All-Pac-10 selection in 2009 and 10. And then on the right side of the line, if you will, I'm going at guard, Big Jonah Savianea, who played 3 positions on Arizona's offensive line in 3 years, played right tackle, right guard, left tackle, and excelled at every single position. So I got Big Jonah on there as well. And then the final offensive lineman, I'm going with Jordan Morgan. The Marana native started his Arizona career in 2019 under Kevin Sumlin. but really became an NFL caliber offensive lineman under Jed Fish and Brandon Carroll. And in Arizona's 10-win season in 2023, he started all 12 games at left tackle in the regular season and allowed 2 sacks in 787 snaps. Think about that. 787 offensive snaps, and you only allowed 2 sacks. Jordan Morgan, he's as good as it gets, and he's the final lineman on my all-quarter century team. Before I go to the defense, just want to get your thoughts on the offense, Damon.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I can't say I disagreed with any of them. The offensive line, some of the guys when I was a little bit more like in my elementary school days, I need to do a little bit more research on to speak on fully. But as far as the skill players, I was with every one of them. I did a quick check and I was like, when did Dennis Northcutt played? He played 4 years, all just prior to 2000. So that
Yeah.
was one that I just was interested in. Sam puts here in the chat, Austin Hill, Cindric Steptoe, a couple other
Yeah.
really, really good Arizona wide receivers. Austin Hill, that one season in 2012 was obviously unbelievable in particular. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
Jacob Cowing as well. I mean, you have some good options at wide receiver, but I think you picked all the right players, to be honest.
Oh, totally, man. And it was hard. It was hard, man, because like there's so many great players that have played at the U of A. Austin Hill, not only a great year in 2012, but he was the guy that was on the receiving end of the Hail Mary against Cal in 2014, which was a very special year for Arizona.
And we don't make it to the Fiesta Bowl without that play happening. So, yeah.
Exactly. So it was hard, man. I had to limit it just one team, just an offense, defense, and special teams. And with that being said, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. Let's start up front on the defensive line. This is an all Mike Stoops era defensive line.
Shocking.
We're going with Brooks Reed, Tucson native, former Sabino SaberCat, who actually came to Arizona as a fullback. People forget about that.
Wow.
But then he switched to D-end, had a breakout season in 2008 with 8 sacks, and then he ended his U of A career with 114 tackles, 17 sacks. It was a first-team All-Pac-10 selection in 2010. On the other side, I'm going with Ricky Elmore. And fun fact about Ricky Elmore that not a lot of people really know about, he has the second most career sacks in Arizona history behind Teddy Bruschi. Like when you think about some of the top pass rushers, of course you're going to put, Ricky Elmore, but number 2 behind Teddy Bruschi, I thought that was a little surprising, but Ricky Elmore was a stud at the U of A. His 11 sacks in 2010 is tied for the 7th most at Arizona. Another all Pac-10 guy. Him and Brooks Reed coming off the edge was special to watch. And then on the interior, I'm going with Earl Mother Bleepin Mitchell, who was a fullback converted defensive lineman. And I mean, he went from starting in Arizona's backfield, because he was a productive fullback, to then becoming a defensive tackle with 88 tackles, 19 tackles for loss, and had 8 sacks in 2 seasons. Was a special dude. And then the other defensive tackle, I'm going with Lionel Dotson. Dotson was another all Pac-10 guy in 2007, had 121 tackles, 14 and a half tackles for loss, 10 and a half sacks, 3 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, and forced pass breakups in 32 games. One of the more underrated defensive players in Arizona history. Went on to have a cup of coffee in the NFL, more notably played for the Miami Dolphins, but he was great at Arizona. And I'm going with the all Stoops defensive line for my all quarter century team. And then at linebacker, we got 3 choices here. So 3 linebackers. Let's start off with kind of the one that's not really the obvious, Spencer Larson. People think,
Okay.
what about Ronnie Palmer? What about Tony Fields, Colin Schooler? Those guys were great. But the 3 guys that I'm about to mention, you're going to hear the names. You're going to be like, okay, I get it now. But Spencer Larson was an all Pac-10 guy in 2007. He actually led the conference in tackles. Think about this. In 2007, when you've got almighty USC and all the great linebackers that they pumped out during that time with Pete Carroll, Spencer Larson was the guy who led the Pac-10 in tackles.
Not Clay Matthews, not Ray Malaluga. It was Spencer Larson.
It was Spencer freaking Larson. So I put Spencer Larson on that list. Lance Briggs, I'm putting him on that list as well. He had over 300 tackles during his time at Arizona. It was a 3-time all Pac-10 selection. Can't really argue with that. And then last but certainly not least, some would say maybe we're saving the best for last, maybe the best linebacker to ever play at Arizona, or at least the guy that had maybe the best defensive season in Arizona football history. You got to go with Scooby Wright. All American, unanimously, had 163 tackles in one season. Was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, Bronco Nagurski Trophy recipient, won the Lombardi Award, the Chuck Bednarik Award as well. Like, if it wasn't for injuries in 2015, I truly feel like Scooby Wright would have been a day one or a day two draft pick rather than falling all the way down to the 7th round. So I got Scooby Wright, Spencer Larson, Lance Briggs. Those are my linebackers. Going into the secondary, I've got Antoine Cason at cornerback. Absolute ball hawk. He's got the 4th most career interceptions by an Arizona Wildcat. Unanimous All-American. Winner of the Jim Thorpe Award, which is given to college football's top defensive back. And he was also a great punt returner, too. So Antoine Cason, he's as good as it gets. Also another first-round draft pick in 2007 by my Los Angeles Chargers, or then San Diego Chargers. The other cornerback, I'm going with Trevin Wade, who had an 85-yard pick six in Arizona's upset win over number 9 Iowa in 2010. Played in 38 games, had 182 tackles, 12 interceptions, and 2 touchdowns. I could have went with Robert Golden on this, but I mean, Trevin Wade, the stats, it was too good to turn down. So I got Trevin Wade and Antoine Cason as my cornerbacks. And then at safety, I'm going with Tremaine Bondurant, who was a great player under Mike Stoops and Rich Rodriguez. Him and Jared Tevis together was a great safety tandem. And then I'm going with Darrell Brooks, who was a part of the early Mike Stoops era, led the Wildcats in tackles and interceptions in 2005, and was just an absolute stud. I mean, he was everywhere on the field for Arizona. So that's my defense. Before we get to special teams and the coach, Damon, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that cornerback 2 spot, I think Trevin Wade was a very consistent, great player. You could talk me into maybe a Shaq Richardson potentially there as well. He was a really, really good player at Arizona for a good amount of time. I think that one was semi-debatable. And then at safety, Tremaine Bondurant is maybe my favorite underrated Wildcat of all time. The guy was just an absolute turnover machine, right? Like every time he was on the field, he was forcing a fumble, recovering a fumble, you name it. And that Washington game comes to mind in 2014 where they basically just had to run the clock out, and Tremaine Bondurant somehow forces a fumble and lands on it, and Casey Scourin hits a 50-plus yarder for the W. But I could also see a Will Parks being put in for maybe a Tremaine Bondurant. I think that Will Parks was a phenomenal Wildcat for a very long time. But in general, I think you hit the nail on the head with most of those there. And honestly, I didn't know enough about. I got to be honest, I didn't. The 4th defensive lineman you named, even though he played for my Dolphins, not particularly familiar. So I got what was his name again?
Lionel Dotson.
Lionel Dotson. You called him underrated, and certainly is, because one of the 1%ers of Arizona football over here, and myself doesn't even know his name. So I'll have to do some research on him. But just very fun exercise. But I need to know what do we got? Special teams now?
So now we got special teams and also the head coach.
Gotcha.
So at kicker,
that'll be interesting.
At kicker, Tyler Loop. I mean, he's got an 83.8% field goal rate, which is 39th in college football history, the best in U of A history. He's got the 3rd most points in U of A history behind Max Zendejas and the Cactus Comet, Art Lupino. He's got a 62
What about Alex Zendejas?
Oh, man. Arizona fans, if you listen closely, Arizona fans just collectively laughed. With all due respect, because I like Alex Zendejas, and I thought he had some good moments. Like in 2009, he hit the game-winning field goal against ASU.
Yeah.
But then ask about the field goal against ASU the following year, right? So the 2 kickers that were in consideration were obviously Tyler Loop and then Nick Folk. Mm-hmm. But if we're just talking about what they did at the U of A, it's Tyler Loop every day of the week and twice on Sunday. And so I put him on there. At punter, Kyle Ostendorp.
Okay.
He averaged 49.2 yards per punt in 2021. And my favorite fact about Kyle Ostendorp is that he was the only Wildcat in Arizona's 1-11 season to earn all conference honors, which I mean, really summarizes exactly how horrible that year was, where the punter is the only one who's getting love for all conference.
I forgot about that. That was unbelievable.
It,
Great
man,
season though from Ossendorp that year for sure.
100%. Now he's doing great things with NASA. So yeah, Kyle Osendorp is my all quarter century punter. Returner, you can go Bobby Wade, you can go Mike Thomas. Heck, you can even go Antoine Cason. Here's a wild card. Arizona fans will probably remember this name. Travis Cobb. Travis Cobb played under Mike Stoops. He had more receiving yards than, he had more returning yards than receiving yards. He had 64 kick returns for just under 1,700 yards and a couple of tutties in 2009 and 10. He also had a 95-yard return to open Arizona's win over Washington State in 2009. And then he also had a 100-yard return for a touchdown against Iowa in 2010. So Travis Cobb is my top returner. Long snapper, I'm going with Seth McKellar, who snapped in 53 games for Arizona between 2019 and 23. And then before we get to the coach, I got a utility guy, a kind of an all-purpose player. And my
Okay.
utility guy is Khalil Tate, the former Arizona quarterback who's a great runner, great athlete. I mean, we may not see another month of football like we saw in 2017 with Khalil Tate. I mean, what he did in the month of October of 2017 was special. And so as kind of like a do everything guy, I'm putting Khalil Tate as my player. And then for my coach, it depends on what you value. Do you value NFL draft picks? Then I think the choice is Mike Stoops. Do you value turning around the program in a quick manner? It's Jedd Fisch, who had a 9-win improvement in 2 seasons after inheriting that mess that Kevin Sumlin left behind. But I'm going with steady. And no one was more steady than Rich Rodriguez at Arizona. Went 43-35, which is the most wins by an Arizona coach since the late, great Dick Tomey. Won the Pac-12 South Championship. I know the bowl wins, a couple of wins at the New Mexico Bowl and the Advocare V100 Bowl, like not bowl games to like write home about. But Arizona football fans are like, hey, we're not asking you to be world beaters. Just get us to a freaking postseason, win some bowl games. That's all we ever ask for. And then occasionally you have that special 10-win season where maybe Arizona is flirting with the college football playoff or maybe even winning a national championship. Expectations for Arizona football, not as high as Arizona basketball. And Rich Rodriguez maintained those expectations for a lot of years. So I put Rich Rodriguez as the coach of Arizona football from 2000 to 2025.
I think that that's a really interesting conversation because I really could hear arguments from 3 sides, I think, and kind of be convinced of it, right? Like Jedd Fisch, I think you see the highest of highs. In my opinion, I think that Jedd Fisch team, 2 seasons ago is better than the Mike Stoops teams that made the Holiday Bowl and the Alamo Bowl, better than the Rich Rodriguez team that made the Fiesta Bowl. I think if, Fafita plays that full season and you never know because even those Washington and USC losses to, the number 1 pick in the NFL and the team that made the national championship were nail biters in Fafita's first couple starts. But so I think the highest ceiling is Jedd Fisch. I do think that the highest floor is Rich Rod, as you're talking about. Like, no matter what, Rich Rod could have the worst recruiting class in the entire conference, and you knew he was going to get you one of the top 3 offenses in the conference, even with a bunch of 2 stars and low 3 stars running around. Like he's going to take a JJ Taylor and make him into an absolute monster, right? Like a guy that no one saw coming. And so with that, I think that his floor is extremely high. And then Mike Stoops, you're right. Like he had probably the highest caliber of players coming in and out of the program consistently, right? Because Jedd Fisch did put a lot of guys in the NFL in his very short time in Tucson. But I could hear an argument from all 3 sides. I think that, yeah, the bowl game argument and aspect of things, Justin, is definitely difficult from a Rich Rod standpoint because I'll never forget that Fiesta Bowl and a New Solomon staying in bounds. I'll never forget that Purdue game in the Foster Farms Bowl, even though it's the Foster Farms Bowl. Like at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. But I wanted that win so damn bad, in part because I worked for the team at the time. But just that the culmination of that Khalil Tate season, like felt like it should have ended in a win, right? Felt like it should have ended in an 8-win season. And one part of that game, I don't know if this is ringing any bells, Justin, but do you remember when before halftime, the refs told the Arizona defense that Purdue was kneeing it out, and then Purdue took a fake knee like all the way down to the other end of the field. I mean
Yes.
that genuinely cost Arizona that football game. The refs doing that cost Arizona that football game, and that scars me for life. But yeah, I could see that argument. I probably would go with Jed Fish just because in such a short period of time he turned this program into an NFL factory of sorts, and saw some of the highest caliber players I've ever seen at Arizona. I know it wasn't for extended periods of time, but I think that if I'm doing the best of the best, I would go with him as much as I don't like the guy.
Yeah. Well, I got to take off. But Jed Fish, like I said, in the quick turnaround, I mean, he took Arizona from 111 to nationally relevant. So again, it's like it's what you value, but it's a good exercise. I hope Arizona football fans, I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope I did a good job. I feel like I did a really good job. And there's also an honorable mention list as well. So all the guys that we didn't mention, trust me, there's a whole laundry list of guys that are absolute studs that should be recognized as some of the best in Arizona football history.
Well, Justin, we appreciate your time joining us today. I know you're a busy man, so we'll get you off. Get you off fast. Yeah, Justin Spears had places to be, but you can follow Justin at Justin Esports on Twitter. Make sure you guys throw him a follow. Throw Justin subscribe as well on Tucson.com with the Arizona Daily Star, where he does great work. He put that all quarter century football team article into the ether there, and it was a very very fun exercise that we had a great time with. I got to get into one last break, and we'll do that right here on the AZ Wildcats podcast. Let's talk about Shady Rays. Derek was throwing some shade at the weather the other day, courtesy of his friends over at Shady Rays. We have a promo code for you that you're going to want to get involved with. It is PHNX, and it's going to get you 35% off a pair of premium polarized sunglasses. That's not all with Shady Rays. You know, you get that premium sunglasses for not a premium price, right? But on top of that, if you ever lose or break those sunglasses, all you got to do is hit up their support team, and they're going to send you a brand stinking new pair. That's what's great about Shady Rays. They have their lost and broken replacement policy, and whether it's like frames for any age, gender, you name it, they got it all over at Shady Rays. I believe Johnny lost his Shady Rays in the ocean in Hawaii. All he had to do is hit them up. Real quick, easy peasy, got another pair shipped to him within the week. That's the great part about Shady Rays. I know I'm losing and breaking my sunglasses all the damn time, so that's why this offer is so important to me. And we've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com, use promo code PHNX for 35% off. Pair of polarized sunglasses, try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 350,000 people. Speaking of shades, another thing that goes with a good pair of shades is just a damn good hat. And that's why I got a Branded Bills hat on right now. With our promo code PHNX, or BBPHNX, we just changed that. You're going to save 10% off your first order over at Branded Bills. If you could see here, I have my Phoenix Branded Bills hat on. It's the golfer style, has the rope on it. It is an absolutely beautiful hat. It is the most comfortable hat I've ever owned. And whether it's, snapbacks, fitted truckers, beanies, even T-shirts, Branded Bills, they got you covered. And they're going to be representing your brand as well. Just like we got PHNX represented on our hat, you can get, your softball team, your charity, anything that you care about. And you can get that branded up with our friends at Branded Bills. So use that promo code BBPHNX for 10% off your first order over at brandedbills.com and use that promo code BBPHNX. Well, real quick before we get out of here, I did want to talk about Darius Wabbington, who recently received an offer, announced it on his Instagram actually yesterday, and I'll pull that up here for you guys for over at home. Darius Wabbington is a 2027 6'11 center 5-star from the city of Phoenix, goes to Sunnyslope High School. He put out an Instagram post saying, blessed to receive an offer from the University of Arizona. Put some hashtags in there. You can see at the very top who's that commenting, putting in the recruiting hours, putting in the hard work. Our boy Koa Peat. Koa Peat already tweeting some fire emojis, getting involved in the recruiting process of a Darius Wabbington. And I think that this is a player that it goes to show Tommy Lloyd's recruiting style changing somewhat. And we're going to head on over into overtime here on the AZ Wildcats podcast in 1 second here. But yeah, Darius Wabbington, he had offers from Arizona State, LSU, Maryland, Purdue, Villanova, UW has some interest from UCLA, among others, some smaller schools as well, like a Cal State, Northridge. But this is a player that is one of the elites of his class in 2027. Arizona has now offered 2 players in the 2027 cycle, with Bruce Branch, the number 10 composite player on 24/7 Sports, being that second player. But Tommy Lloyd is usually a guy who likes to focus on the class at hand. So, that 2025 class is set and sealed and delivered. Those guys are in Tucson already, as Arizona basketball reported back today for the summer. But on top of that, Tommy then moves on to that 2026 cycle and likes to focus on that. Kevin and I discussed last week how little offers Tommy likes to send out to the guys that he's recruiting, right? And, you're seeing that change a little bit here early on in the 2027 cycle, where he's feeling, he needs to go out of his comfort zone to get these offers in a little bit earlier. I think it just goes to show a little bit of a change in recruiting tactics from Tommy Lloyd and co. But as far as Darius Wabbington goes, this is a Phoenix kid. He's an elite Phoenix kid. Arizona tends to do well with those guys. You look at Koa Peat, you look at Dalen Terry, the list goes on and on. Even, if DeAndre Ayton, if you want to count him, Mike Bibby, Richard Jefferson, Channing Frye. I mean, there's just tons of Phoenix area hoopers that wind up at the University of Arizona, and for good reason, right? Because this is the premier basketball program in the state, and a lot of these kids grow up wanting to be Arizona Wildcats. Darius Wabbington, you hope it's much of the same. Is this a kid that, I know he's grown up in the great state of Arizona, of course, but is this a kid that, he saw the Arizona brand and it appealed to him from a young age, right? Like he wanted to play at the pinnacle of college basketball, watching that all the time, seeing players, and I'm sure friends like Koa Peat, going to U of A and committing to U of A coming from Phoenix. So I think this is a recruitment where Arizona, you expect them to do well and you expect them to get to the finish line and honestly, you might even expect them to nab this guy and make it official with Darius Wabbington. Like I said, he's a 6'11" center out of Sunnyslope High School. He's ranked the number 20 player, 5-star consensus composite player in the 247 class for 2027. So we will keep you locked and loaded when it comes to all your Arizona basketball recruiting insights. Darius Wabbington, just the latest to receive an offer from Tommy Lloyd and co. And maybe going to show a little bit different tactics moving forward for Tommy Lloyd in his recruiting, the way that he approaches recruiting from a long-term versus short-term standpoint. That's going to do it for us today here on the AZ Wildcats podcast. I appreciate everybody rocking with us today. Appreciate our guy, Justin Spears, for joining the show. You can follow me at Damon Dog, that's CAWG. Follow my guy, Kevin, at Kevo Post, that's KEVOPOSTS. Kevin's having a good time in California, much deserved vacation. Yes, hopefully he will be back on a Monday, and we will, we'll discuss said vacation. But we're going to be bringing you the coverage all the rest of the week. I got a special guest on tomorrow. We got Erica Day joining the program, as well as I believe, a special guest interview, so you guys won't want to miss that. It is going to be an interview that everybody knows, loves, and would be super excited for. So stay tuned for that. And we'll catch you tomorrow at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday edition of the AZ Wildcats podcast. Until then, peace out, bear down, and go Cats.
We all silly like the mayor.